Hi, everyone. Welcome to my talk today. Let me move my camera just so you can see me. I'll go ahead and get started. So this is analyze your Tableau CRM Dataflows. And the different thing about this is that we'll be using VS Code and using an SFDX plugin that'll help us analyze your Dataflows performance for Tableau CRM, which I'll also give an overview about on how it all works and connects, just in case you're new to using, Tableau CRM, which was formerly called Einstein Analytics. So a little bit about me. I spent a lot of time in Salesforce, and I can't be more grateful for the community, and then also just CenCal Dreamin for having me. So this is my second time here at CenCal Dreamin, and I hope to continue to be involved. And so I've been able to get over 10 Salesforce certifications so far. I'm considered an analytics champion, which is now a Tableau CRM ambassador. And I grew up in Sacramento, but this year I moved over to Dallas in January. And so, still getting to know the area, but, happy to always connect with different folks from California or Texas for that matter. And so getting into the agenda, so I'm going to give an overview on what Tableau CRM is for those of you that may not be familiar with it. Also give you an overview around what is it that a Dataflow does. And then we'll dive deep into the SFDX plugin and how you can sort of start to really analyze your data flows to make sure that they're running and performing the best way possible. And that way, if you have long running data flows, you can easily see ways that you can try to improve it. And then at the end, I'll try to leave some time for Q&A. So just to give everyone an overview of the history of Tableau CRM. And so Tableau CRM has gone through a lot of changes. As you may know, that there's been a lot of different name changes. And so it all started in 2013 with the acquisition of EdgeSpring. So EdgeSpring was an enterprise BI and analytics startup, and that eventually led to being Wave Analytics. For those of you that maybe have been here for a long time, that's been like the original name since then. And then Salesforce acquired another enterprise analytics vendor, Beyond Core, that sort of augmented their analytics capabilities. Then another rebrand happened in 2017. And so that's when it was called Salesforce Einstein Analytics. And so that's where the whole rebranding around AI and machine learning happened. And then Tableau was acquired in 2019, which is one of Salesforce's largest acquisitions to date. And now in 2020, Tableau CRM was rebranded from Einstein Analytics to now Tableau CRM, since Einstein Analytics was basically moved from the Salesforce suite of products to Tableau's. And so that's where this whole journey started with the product. And so just to give everyone an overview of how it all works. So basically, it's not Tableau, but it's basically an analytics tool for your Salesforce. And so you basically connect Salesforce data, and that can also be external data, to Tableau CRM. And then from there, you build a data set. And from that data set, we're able to build dashboards to be able to explore and visualize data. And then from there, we're able to sort of share or at least showcase a story. Because the whole power of Tableau CRM is that you want to be able to bring in all your data. So then that way, that data gives you insights. And then from those insights, you're able to take action right where your dashboard is. And so for me, that's where a lot of the power from Tableau CRM comes, is that you're able to sort of take action from that data that you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, businesses are using data to basically make decisions. And so with Tableau CRM, you're able to make those decisions real time. And now getting into the data flow. So in Tableau CRM, the bread and butter of being able to view data is that you have to build a data set. And so in Tableau CRM, you're able to build out a data set in two ways. One is that you're able to build it with a data flow, which I'm going to cover. And then you're also able to build a data set using a recipe, which is now called the data prep tool, which I won't be getting into, but the data prep tool is more so, I guess, a more user-friendly way to be able to build your data sets, because it has, very specific UI, and it allows, more business users to be able to build data sets that way. But in my opinion, Dataflow is where a lot of the powerful ways that you can create a data set come from. And so a data flow is basically a set of instructions that you tell Tableau CRM to be able to build your data set. And so, you can manipulate different data points to be able to build a data set that you'd like. And so here in the picture that I have is we're basically getting all the accounts that we have, as well as all the different opportunities that we have. And we want to be able to count how many opportunities that account has. And so that's where we join those two objects together. And then from there, we're able to register a data set that basically contains our accounts, as well as, the number of opportunities that we have. And so data flows are what builds all these different data sets for our dashboards, and you can schedule them to run, because every time that you have to add a field or have to make any sort of changes, you have to run these data flows to get fresh data. And so you can schedule the data flows to run based on certain time periods, so that way you can see how fresh you want to keep your data, whether that's 24 hours, 12 hours, and so forth. And so now getting into the plugin. And so Mohan, he works for Salesforce, and he's built an official, or not, he built a plugin that's not an official plugin, but it does help us accomplish a lot of different things with using it with Tableau CRM. And so there's a lot of different use cases that can go outside of Tableau CRM, but I won't be getting into that. I'd be getting into what's covered from the data flow side. And so, what we want to be able to do with Mohan's plugin is we want to be able to identify ways that we can improve the runtime of a data flow, because sometimes these data flows can run for a really long period of time, especially when you have a lot of data coming in and you have a lot of different data transformations. And so it's always important to make sure that you can decrease that amount of time as much as possible. And so, take one instance, for example, if you have different business units working in Tableau CRM, and you have a lot of different developers building these dashboards. So you have sales, you have marketing, you have services. Sometimes, like when these data flows are running, they can impact each other or even overlap based on how these data flows are scheduled. So ideally, we want to be able to have these data flows run in the least amount of time possible, so then that way our users can get the fastest and most freshest data as possible. And so with Mohan's plugin, what we're able to do for our data flows is that we can identify which fields are not used and can be removed. And then we can also get a detailed overview of data flow nodes and their performance. And so what I'll be doing for my talk today is I'll be doing a demo to basically sort of show you some of the things that I've done with using this plugin. And then just to keep in mind, if you wanted to explore this on your own time, this is just like the requirements that's needed. So you'll need a developer org with Tableau CRM. If you don't have Tableau CRM already, of course, you can use VS Code. And then you also have to download Node.js for the requirements. And then just to get started, this is the way that you install the plugin, and you can update it as well, just to make sure that you get the most updated plugin as possible. And now I'll be switching over to my VS Code and sort of show you how it all make it work together. Sorry, I'm having, okay, I think now everyone's able to see it. And so what I'll be doing is basically logging into my developer org. So the command I have here is sfdx force auth web login. And that should open a window for me. It actually opened on my other screen, so bear with me. So I'm going to be logging into my Scratch org. So now that I've logged in, I should be authenticated for my VS Code. So I got the success message that I'm successfully authorized. And so now what I'll be doing is I'll be getting into one of the use cases for Mohan's plugin, and that's the field usage analysis. And so the reason why field usage analysis is important is because we want to make sure that we're only bringing in the relevant fields for our dashboards, because even though we're able to bring in as many fields as we want, that does impact the performance of you know, our data sets and our data flows, and so that makes it run even longer. And so the thing to keep in mind is that even though we may remove some unnecessary fields, just know that we're always able to bring it back in. And so what I'll be doing is basically I'll be looking into to see what data flows that we have in my org. And then from there, I'll be looking to analyze and see, all right, from that data flow, how many fields do I have that I'm bringing in? And I want to be able to see which ones are actually being used. So then that way I can determine for myself if, you know, if this is something a field that I want to keep, or if this is something that I want to remove. So then that way I can make sure that my data flow runs the more efficient possible, because the least number of fields that you have, the more better runtime that you'll have for your data flow. And so now that I logged in, my next command is that I want to be able to see all the different data flows in my org. So then that way I can capture the Dataflow ID, which is going to be for my next command. And if it may be hard to follow, I've also added these commands in my deck, which I believe you may have access to after this call. And so this command, all I'm doing is basically saying, I want the plugin to be able to bring me all my different data flows. And then I had to specify from which user. And so since I'm the admin, I'm able to see all the different data flows. And so here, now I'm able to see all the different data flows I have. And it brings me the ID. And so what I want to do is I want to see for my analytics for sales managers, I want to be able to identify what are the fields that are being used today, and maybe try to look and see which ones I can drop. And so what I would do is basically I'd copy this ID and then paste it into my next command. And so since I have that already pre-made, I'll just go ahead and paste in my next command, which is field usage. And so the second command I used was to bring in the list of data flows. And then this one is now specifying, all right, I want to be able to look at the field usage. And so essentially I change this command. I still keep my user. And then the dash D specifies the ID of that data flow. And so what the data flow that I'll be looking at is analytics for sales managers. So after running the command, you'll see all these different prompts going of looking at the different security that's in place, while also looking and seeing from this data flow, what are all the different data sets that are being built. And depending on your data flow, this could take a little bit of time to run, but not too much. Because I believe for this data flow, this is just a data flow that's built off of a template from the analytics for sales managers dashboard, but this shouldn't take long. So as we wait for this command to run, I think everyone can understand, at least like the big picture of that. Once this command finishes running, then we'll basically get an output. So that output is basically two files. We're going to get a JSON file, or we're going to get a CSV file. So that CSV file is going to contain, all of the different data that's related to the field usage analysis. And what I'm going to be showing is basically, what I like to call is like eating our own dog food. And so since we're Tableau CRM users, we're going to use Tableau CRM to sort of visualize that data. So then that way we truly see like, how does this dashboard really, or how does this data really look like? And so just to give everyone an example, I'll show how the CSV file looks like. And so here is the CSV file. So here we can see what are all the different types of files that we're bringing in. Is that a dimension? Is that a numeric field? The name of the field? What the name of the data flow is, in case we're trying to basically bring in for different data flows. We can probably append that data together. What that data set name is, the dashboards of where that's being used. We can even see what lens that's being used. And so a lens is basically a query that lives outside of a dashboard. We can also see whether or not that field is being used in a security predicate. And for those that may not know, a security predicate is used to basically identify, if we want to place any sort of security on our data. And then here in the usage count, we can see the number of times that this field is being referenced in, Tableau CRM. And then there's a flag for in use. And so if I go back to my org, I already went ahead and built out the dashboard. And so if we go to Analytics Studio, and I went ahead and created the field usage analysis dashboard. So here is inspired from a blog that I learned this from, which is Salesforce Blogger. And so here I can visually see, all the different data sets that I'm using with this data flow. On the right, I can see what's in use or not. And so there's a total of 730 fields being used or referenced, where the blue represents false, and then the true represents whether or not it's actually being used. And then here I can see a table with all the relevant data. And so let's say that there's a big focus around the opportunity data set. And we're noticing that this data flow just takes a really long time to run, and we want to focus in on the opportunity. And so say if I click on this opportunity bar, I'm able to see, all right, I see that there's actually 55 fields being used, where 53 of them aren't. And so that to me shows that like there's probably a room to be able to sort of reduce that, so then that way I can reduce the runtime of my data flow. And then I can also drill down even more. And so if I click on the false, then I can see, what are all these different fields that I'm not using. And so, there's a lot of room for us to, work with. And I think, this is something that is very powerful for us to sort of quickly identify, what are all the different fields that I'm not using. So then that way I can just go ahead and remove those fields from my data flow. And that way, there's more runtime that gets decreased from it. And so that was a field usage analysis. And so I have the commands in my deck, and that's where you can reference them. And so the next thing that I'll do is now I'm going to look at a specific job. So then that way I can understand, the true runtime of each node, and I can see if there's anything that I should be doing better. And so just to give everyone an example of how you can look at it today. And so right now, we just ran the analytics for sales managers. And so here, I'm able to sort of see when I collapse on the arrow, I'm able to see what each node is doing, how many records that's pulling in. And, I can get a base sense on like, how long it is typically taking. But let's say I want to look into it more and with a magnifying glass, I can do that with Mohan's plugin. And so I'll do that now. Open my VS Code. It seems like this command timed out, but hopefully that doesn't affect us for what I'm going to do next. And so now what I'm going to do is basically what I have to do is type in a command to be able to bring in all the different jobs that I have for what I've run so far in my org. And I'm going to just copy that. And so here I have what we did before is we brought in all the different data flows, so then that way we can extract the ID. And so here we're doing the same, but for the jobs. So I run this command. And so here I'm able to basically get all the different jobs that I've run so far and then get the ID for that. Because for our next command, similar to what we did before, I want to be able to copy this and then paste it for the next command I'm about to run. And so the cool thing about this one is that before, we were specifying a command that just shows for the field usage analysis. But in this next command I'm going to show you is that you can run a command that basically does both at the same time. So there's a way that we can just specify, let me just get the field usage analysis statistics for this data flow. But how about let's take it up a notch, and also on top of giving me the field usage analysis, also give me the performance for each node. And so all we have to do essentially is just add the data flow ID at the end. And so now my command is basically analyze the data flow jobs, add the user. I add the job ID here with the -J prefix, and then my data flow ID with the -D. And so I hit enter. And now it's gonna, look at my field usage analysis, but then it's also gonna spit out all that, the node performance details that we're gonna look at in a bit. And I've already have that file ready. And so what that file is a SVG file. And so I'm not familiar with all the different applications that can be used for an SVG file to be able to open, but basically it's a diagram that allows you to see each node from the data flow. You can see all the different action types, the parameters, the duration it took to run each node, and then what are all the different input and output rows for each of the nodes. And so you can also see all the logic. So if we add any custom SACL to our compute expression nodes, we'll be able to see that. And so an SVG file can be opened with using Chrome, you know, and at least that's the best way I know how to open it. But you'll see that it's a very long file. So I see that this command is still running, but I'll go ahead and just open the file just to show everyone. And apologies, I'm having some difficulties opening it, but I think I know what I can do. So this blog covers how to work with this specific use case, but here you can see screenshots of how those nodes look like. And so here you're able to see the duration, how many rows are coming in, how many rows are coming out, as well as you can see all the different relationships happening. And so to me, like, this also helps with documentation. And so if you really need to dive into the details of your data flow, you can do that using this command. Which we'll check in later to see if it ran. But you know, this is how it looks like. So here, for example, I'm bringing in the opportunity object, and then these are all the different fields that I'm bringing in, and we can see that there's 351 records. So just so I can check on my VS Code, you know, it seems like it times out, but thankfully, you know, I went ahead and have done this command already, but you know, I hope that this gives you a good picture around you know, what you're able to do with this plugin to be able to look at your data flows at a much more detailed view. And then I'll move back to my slides. So as I was mentioning before, you can reference all the different commands that you can look at here with regards to the field usage analysis, and even looking at the data flow job analysis. So that way you can look at the list of jobs, the performance of the data flow, and then even view the timings specifically for that. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, right, it's just some performance tips with your data flows. You know, you want to remove unnecessary fields wherever you can, because, you know, just know that we can always bring those fields back whenever needed. But if we don't need them right now, then it's okay to remove them. We want to make sure that we combine all the SFDC digest nodes, because that means if we're having multiple, we're calling that object multiple times, and that just adds to the runtime. And then same thing with the compute expression. And so if there's ways that we can add all of our compute expression fields all in one, and combine wherever possible, that's just going to help with your runtime of the data flow and you know, make it much more efficient. And these are some additional use cases that you can look at with this plugin. And so we can even export data sets, upload data sets, you know, export node details, as I was mentioning, and then we can even start and stop data flows on command. You know, as I'm wrapping up, I just want to give a special thanks to Ricky Hovgaard and then Mohan, because I think without them, I wouldn't be able to have presented this presentation, and as well as, you know, I've been able to use this tool because of them. And so I also want to give a shout out to like salesforceblogger.com. To me, salesforceblogger.com is like a very important resource if you're looking into any sort of Tableau CRM, you know, steps or like solutions and guides. there's a lot of different use cases that you can look into. And so to me, it's like a really well-written blog. And so the most recent blog that I saw is just like the Tableau CRM asset lifecycle. And so to me, like, just really special thanks to them. And I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can learn Tableau CRM by visiting their blog. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone who joined my presentation, and hopefully I can answer any questions that I see in the chat. Okay, thanks, Jake, for the ask. Yeah, so something recently I started working on is around team performance, and so there's cases around like looking at close one, commit, quota, and even maybe looking at the prediction and forecasting piece. And so that way we can understand how the sales reps are performing against their peers, and even look at a higher level around how like a specific team is performing when it comes down to their sales metrics or quota. Okay. No worries. So I think the biggest hurdle is probably just like maybe like the terminology, or just like thinking about like the different ways that Tableau CRM works compared to like other analytics tools. And so like, for instance, like when you're trying to make sure that different widgets work together. And so maybe I'll share my screen and sort of show you what I'm talking about. So on my dashboard, depending on what my data set is, since this is all one data set, I'm able to easily click and it filters on the other widgets. But the other thing is just like understanding like how the dashboard works together. And so, you know, if say this was a different data set, in order for me to be able to have this basically talk to each other, I have to do what's called a binding, and they're now called interactions. But a binding basically allows you to like write custom code to like have those two widgets talk to each other. And so to me, like I think it's not necessarily difficult to learn Tableau CRM, but it's just understanding like the different pieces that allow it to all work together. And so like even when it comes down to the data flow, you just have to understand what are all the different functionalities that you can do within that to be able to add your transformations, because on different tools it may be called something different. And so when you're wanting to join an object with each other, it's like, you know, it's typically called a join, but in Tableau CRM is called an augment. If I want to add like a transformation, which is basically creating a computed field, in Tableau CRM, it's a compute expression versus, you know, what's typically standard in those ways. So to me, like it's kind of easy to pick up, but you know, it's just more of understanding like, you know, how it all works together. And no worries, Jake, happy to take them. So the key differences, I think, where like I like to put it as a use case where with Tableau, the ideal, or actually taking a step back, it has to do with persona and where that user lives. And so if that user is looking at Salesforce and they're working in Salesforce and they need to see data within Salesforce, then the recommended tool there is Tableau CRM. But if your user lives outside of Salesforce and they need to look at some data, then you know, maybe Tableau would be the better choice. And so there's a lot of similarities between the two tools. It's just that when it comes down to like basically like your database, I think Tableau, when it comes down to external data sources, Tableau has the advantage over Salesforce, because with Salesforce, you have to work with certain connections. And so maybe I can show that here, because you're able to you know, connect to different databases within Tableau CRM, and it's only certain ones. You can't connect to everything, which like Tableau has more options for. And so I can click add connection. I see Salesforce connector here. So if I have another Salesforce instance, I can connect to that. There's AWS, Redshift, Marketing Cloud, BigQuery, Dynamics, Eloqua, Snowflake, of course, NetSuite. And you're kind of limited to this versus, you know, with Tableau CRM, you can do it even with Tableau, you can do it with on-premise systems, and you know, there's a lot more choices for databases. Okay. Yeah. So if Jake doesn't have any questions, sorry to pick on you, but you know, happy to take any other ones. But otherwise, like, thank you everyone for joining, and you know, hope that you know, this was useful, and you know, happy to chat more and connect on LinkedIn.